Recall from earlier, we discussed the profit and the loss. So meaning if the net sales is greater than the cost, there is a profit. But if the net sales is less than the cost, then that would be a loss. But what will happen if the net sales is the same as the cost? So if they are equal, then there is no profit and there is no loss, meaning there is a break even. So our learning competency for this lesson, we determine the break-even point and we solve problems involving buying and selling products. So when we talk about problems involving buying and selling products, it involves gaining profit, incurring loss, or reaching the break-even. So as you can see in this illustration, we have here the break-even point is the midpoint between the loss and the profit, meaning there is no loss and there is no profit. That's the break-even. Now, in a certain situation or a certain buying and selling situation, we will reach a point of a break-even. Now, let's define few terms. We have the fixed cost and the variable cost. When we talk about fixed cost, this is the cost necessary to keep the business running regardless of the sales volume. Meaning, whether there is a sale on that certain day or no sale on a day, the fixed cost is always there. Okay, that includes the rent, salaries of the employees, loans if there is any, the basic utilities, and other necessary expenditures. Subot pa sabot, kung ikaw magbaligya, maski pa wala kay halin on that certain day, magbayad man gihapon ka ng rent. You will still pay for the salary of your employee, whether there is a sale on that day or on that week or on that month, whether there is a sale or there is no sale on that certain period of time, you will still be paying the rent if you're renting and paying the salary of your employee. Okay, another basic utilities such as electricity, water bills, internet bills, and other bills, those are fixed costs. Now, when the variable cost, this is the cost of producing each product. Okay, so for example, you are selling milk tea. The fixed cost, the rent, the salary of the employee, electricity, water bills, and others. The variable cost covers the cup, the seal, the straw, and all the necessary materials used for the product na to mismo. That's the variable cost. So si variable cost mo vary depending on how many products were sold on that day or a certain period of time. Also, when we talk about the revenue, it is the product of the price and the quantity sold. So this is given by the formula R is equal to small p multiplied to X. The small p is the price and X is the number of units. That's the revenue. So for example, the price of a cup of coffee is 50 pesos. And there was an order of 10 pieces or 10 cups of coffee. What is the revenue? Let me repeat. The price of a cup of coffee is 50 pesos and there is an order of 10 pieces. What's the revenue? Very good. That is 500. So this is 50 multiplied by 10. The revenue will be 500 pesos. Now the point at which businesses will neither earn a profit nor experience a loss, that's called the break-even point. And it is usually represented by a coordinate. So the coordinate with the first component as the number of units being reached and R as the revenue for selling X units. So for example, there is a break-even point with coordinates 10 and 100. What does it mean? Meaning, if you sold 10 pieces with a revenue of 100 pesos, that means that there is no profit nor loss on that certain situation. Now, try to look at this graph. On the x-axis, you have here the number of units sold. On the y-axis, that is the revenue. Try to look at the blue, the red one. The red dot is the total cost. And the profit is in the blue one. So here, if you try to look at it, if you sold only 200 pieces, okay, we'll try to look at the profit first, this the blue one. If you sold only 200 pieces, that this is the point, then your revenue is only 200,000 pesos, or 20,000 pesos rather. Okay, that is how you understand the graph. However, if you try to look at the 700 number of units being sold, what will be the revenue? Let's try. So if this is 700, so this is your point here. And then your revenue will be only 70,000 pesos. Okay. But if you try to look at the graph here, the blue is lower compared to the red one. The blue, take note, is your profit. And then the red one is your total costs. Meaning there is a loss in this situation. Now, if the red one is higher compared to the blue one, that's a loss. But if the blue, that's the profit, is higher compared to the red one, that means there is a profit. Okay? Because the profit is greater than the total cost. Now, on a certain point, there is an intersection between these two lines. The intersection of the profit and the total cost is the break-even point. So this point here would have a coordinate of 1,000 and 100,000 pesos. Okay, 1,000 and 100,000 pesos. Meaning, when you sold 1,000 pesos, the revenue will be 100,000 pesos. And it means also, because that is the break-even point, there is no loss and there is no profit. Okay, that's the break-even point. Okay, take note that when the total cost is greater than the revenue, then the profit will be negative. So if the profit is negative, it means there is a loss. But if the total cost is less than the revenue, the profit would be positive, and there is, obviously, there is a profit. You will gain on that certain situation. Again, let's recall a formula. Profit is equal to the revenue minus the cost. So the revenue and the net sales is just the same. And the break-even happens when the total cost is equal to the revenue, or the total cost is equal to the net sales. So let's have here formulas for break-even analysis. The total cost is equal to the fixed cost plus the variable cost. Another formula, the revenue is equal to the price multiplied to the number of units being sold. And lastly, the profit is equal to the revenue minus the total cost. Now, if we will use this formula only, if the profit here is positive, meaning you gain, but if the profit here is negative, then there is a loss in the business. For example, Chris is planning to run a coffee shop where he plans to sell each cup of coffee at 50 pesos. He assumed that the fixed cost he needs to pay on a monthly basis amounts to 40,000 pesos, which includes all his expenses, like the amount he needs to pay for the rent, the wages of his employees, the bills, and so on. So, even if Chris has no sales, he is still obliged to pay this amount. So whether he sells a coffee or not, the 40,000 pesos is still payable amount for that certain month. Now, if a cup of coffee costs 10 pesos for a bowl of grind coffee beans, purified water, and coffee filters. So approximately there is only 10 pesos na variable cost per cup na to. So what will be the break-even quantity? And how much profit will he earn if he sells 500 cups or 1,500 cups? And lastly, how many cups must be sold to earn a profit of 40,000 pesos? So to solve for the break-even quantity, again, break-even if the total cost is equal to the revenue. So we'll have to identify first what is the total costs and what is the revenue. Now again, the total costs from our previous formulas presented earlier, the total cost is equal to the fixed cost, which is 40,000 pesos, plus the variable cost, that is 10 pesos per cup. So we know that the fixed cost is 40,000 pesos and our variable cost would now be 10x because we do not know how many cups will be sold. So the variable cost would be 10x and x would be the number of cups. Next, our total cost, we simply add the fixed and the variable cost. So we'll have 40,000 pesos plus 10x. That is your function for the total cost. Now, our revenue would be R is equal to PX. That is the price of the cup of coffee. So you'll have 50 pesos. That's your selling price multiplied by X. Again, to identify the break-even quantity, we need to equate the total cost and the revenue. So if the revenue is equal to the total cost, we know earlier that the revenue is 50x and the total cost is 40,000. This is the fixed cost plus 10x, which is the variable cost. Now, simplifying this using basic algebra, so adding negative 10x to both sides of the equation, you'll have 50x minus 10x. This is equal to 40,000 pesos. You subtract this, you subtract the numerical coefficient, 50 minus 10, you get 40. You copy the literal coefficient, which is x. So you get 40x, which is equal to 40,000 pesos. We need to isolate x, meaning you eliminate the multiplier 40 here. So multiplying both sides by 1 over 40, you have 40,000 pesos over 40, you get 1,000. Now, this 1,000 is the number of cups of coffee to be sold. Meaning, the seller must sell 1,000 cups of coffee first to reach the break-even point. Meaning, by selling 1,000 cups of coffee, there is no loss and there is no gain. Now, what will happen if the seller only sold 800 cups of coffee? Is there a loss or a profit? Okay, very good. There is a loss. So here, take note that X with 1,000 cups of coffee, that's the break-even quantity. Meaning, anything lower than 1,000 cups means there is a loss on the business. But anything greater than 1,000, there is a profit. So next question, what would be the profit in selling 500 cups? So recall we have a formula for the profit, that's the revenue minus the total cost. We know that the revenue is 50x minus the total cost, which is a quantity of 40,000 plus 10x. So we simplify this one. So negative, positive, so that would be negative 10x. So meaning 50 minus 10x, you get 40x. And this minus 40,000. That's the profit. Now, the 40x minus 40,000, this is the function for the profit. If the profit that you'll gain here, or you will be able to solve a positive value for P, then there is a gain. But if the profit here is negative, then there is a loss. So substituting 500 to X, you get a profit of negative 20,000 pesos. Meaning there is a loss of 20,000 pesos because the calculated value is negative. Now, what will happen if there is 1,500 cups being sold? So substituting 1,500 to the function of the profit, you'll have here 40 multiplied to 1,500 minus 40,000, you get 20,000 pesos. So there is a gain of 20,000 pesos once the seller sells 1,500 cups of coffee. Another question. How many cups must be sold to earn a profit of 40,000 pesos? We know earlier that the formula for the profit, the calculated function for the profit is P is equal to 40x minus 40,000. Again, this is from the previous calculation na to. So because what we want is a profit of 40,000 pesos, we want to solve for X. So calculating for X, we have 40,000 is equal to 40x minus 40,000. So this would now be 40 plus 40k is equal to 40x. We add that up, you get 80,000 is equal to 40x. So you get x is equal to 80,000 over 40, which is just equal to 2,000 cups. So meaning, if he or she sells 2,000 cups of coffee, there is a profit of 40,000 pesos. Okay, let's proceed with another example. A store owner sells one whole pad paper at 10 pesos per pad. The fixed cost is 5,000 pesos and the variable cost is 5 pesos per pad. At what level of production that is the number of whole pad, will the business owner have a profit of 2,000 pesos or a loss of 1,000 pesos? So for letter A, we want to know the number of whole pad paper. So the X ang atong hanapon. Now for letter B, how many papers, pad papers, will he break even? And lastly, what is the break-even point? So our total cost, that is the fixed cost plus the variable cost. We know that the fixed cost is 5,000 pesos and the variable cost, that is 5 pesos per pad. So that is 5x. The revenue would be equal to price multiplied to x. The price, the selling price of one pad of paper is 10x. Okay, so you have the revenue. So to obtain a profit of 2,000 pesos, what we want is a profit of 2,000. So 2,000 is equal to 10x, that's the revenue, minus the total cost, that is the quantity of 5,000 plus 5x. So simplify, 10x minus 5x, so 10 minus 5, you get 5x. So this is minus 5,000. Sunod, we have 2,000 plus 5,000 is equal to 5x. All we need to do is to add 5,000 to both sides of the equation. Next, we simplify this. 2,000 plus 5,000, you get 25,000. 7,000 pesos, sorry. So 7,000 is equal to 5x. So we isolate the x here. We should eliminate the 5. So we multiply both sides by 1/5. You get 1,400. That is the x. So again, that is 7,000 divided by 5. You get 1,400. So meaning, for you to obtain a 2,000 pesos na profit, you need to sell 1,400 pads of paper. Next, what will happen if there is a loss of 1,000 pesos? So how many pads of paper were being sold? So because it is emphasized that there is a loss, meaning the P is equal to negative. Again, if there is a loss, the P is negative. So substituting it again to our equation, we have here negative 1,000 is equal to 5x minus 500. Asa gikan si 5x minus 500? This one. The revenue is 10x. The total cost is 5,000 plus 5x. So again, 10x minus 5x, you get 5x. Minus 5,000 here, so you have minus 5,000 also in this part. So what would be the value of x here? So we added 5,000 to both sides of the equation, so you get negative 1,000 plus 5,000 is equal to 5x. Negative 1,000 plus 5,000 is 4,000. Sunod, we divide both sides by 5. So 4,000 divided by 5, you get 800 pieces. So if the seller only sold 800 pieces of or 800 pads of paper, there is a loss of 1,000 pesos. For letter B, how many pads of paper will he break even? So again, this is a break even, meaning the total cost is the same as the revenue. Now the total cost is 5,000 plus 5x. Again, 5,000 is the fixed cost and the variable cost is 5x. So 5,000 plus 5x is equal to 10x. Solving for the value of x, you have 5,000 is equal to 10x minus 5x. So you subtract this two, you get 10x minus 5x is 5x. So solving for the value of x, you get x equal to 1,000. So meaning, if there is only 1,000 pieces or 1,000 pads of paper being sold, there is no profit nor loss. Now let's identify the break-even point. When we talk about the break-even point, by definition earlier, it is a coordinate. That is a coordinate with the first component as x and the second component as the revenue. We already know the break-even. That is 1,000. All we need to do is to solve for the revenue. So our revenue is 10x. So 10 multiplied to 1,000 is 10,000 pesos. So meaning the break-even is 1,000 and 10,000. Okay, so here, looking at this coordinate, when you sell 1,000 pieces, you will have a revenue of 10,000 pesos. Another example. Suppose that the total cost in pesos of a business is TC is equal to 30 plus 2x. And the unit price of a certain commodity is 15 minus x. Determine the break-even point. Now, to determine the break-even point, again, let's recall that the break-even should have the revenue is equal to the total costs. We already know the total cost, and that is 30 plus 2x. However, we need to calculate for the revenue. The revenue is price multiplied to x. So you get 15 minus x multiplied to x. You have that. Using distributive properties of 15 times x, you get 15x. Negative x times x is negative x squared. That's your revenue. And our profit function, that is the revenue minus the total costs. So our revenue, the profit is 15x minus x squared, that's our revenue, minus our total cost, that is 30 plus 2x based on our given. And our profit would now be equal to negative x squared plus 15x minus 30 minus 2x. Take note, on the rules of subtraction, you need to change the sign of the subtrahend and proceed with addition. So you have to change the sign of 30 and 2x. So you get negative 30 and negative 2x. So simplifying this one, you need to combine like terms. So our like terms, 15x minus 2x, you get 13x. The rest is being copied only. So the function for the profit is equal to negative x squared plus 13x minus 30. Now, the next question is to determine the break-even point. Now, for us to determine the break-even point, again, as mentioned earlier, the revenue must be equal to the total cost. We know that the revenue is 15x minus x squared. Again, this was calculated from letter A. The total cost is given, which is 30 plus 2x. So, we combine like terms. So this would now be x squared minus 15x plus 2x plus 30. Just simply transpose this side of the equation to the other. So you have x squared minus 15x plus 2x plus 30. Next is we combine like terms. Negative 15x plus 2x, you get negative 13x. This one. So 0 is equal to x squared minus 13x plus 30. Because what we want is the break-even point, of course, there should be the value of x. We need to identify the value of x. So to do that, this is a trinomial. We need to factor it out. So the factors of x squared minus 13x plus 30 is the x minus 10 and x minus 3. So these are the factors of this trinomial. Calculating for x, you get x is equal to 10 or x is equal to 3. Again, when we talk about the break-even point, there should be the value of x and there should be a revenue for that x. Now, if x is equal to 10, what would be the revenue? So the revenue, all you need to do is to substitute x equal to 10 to all the x's on the revenue function. So 15x, so ang x palihan ng 10, 15 times 10, that's 1, minus x squared. So minus 10 squared. So 15 times 10 is 150. 10 squared is 100. So 150 minus 100, you get 50. Also, if x is equal to 3, then the revenue would be equal to 36. Again, what you need to do is to substitute x equal to 3 to all x's on the revenue. So you get 45 minus 9, which is equal to 36. Now let's identify our break-even point. If x is 10, then there is a revenue of 50. If x is equal to 3, then there is a revenue of 36. So there are two coordinates on your break-even point. And that is 1050 and 336. Those are your break-even points. Okay, let's try. Let x be the number of units. Complete the table below. So given that there is a variable cost, the fixed cost, and the total cost. For the first question, suppose the variable cost is 10x and the fixed cost is 2,000 pesos. What do you think is the total cost? Recall the formula for the total cost. The total cost is just simply equal to the fixed cost plus the variable cost. Okay, very good. That is 10x plus 2,000. How about for the next question? What do you think is the variable cost? Okay, very good. That is 30x. Lastly, what is the fixed cost? Okay, very good. The fixed cost is 1,500 pesos. Okay, next. Now we have the revenue, the total cost, and the profit. What do you think is the profit if the revenue is PX and the total cost is fixed cost plus variable costs? What's the formula for the profit again? That's the revenue minus the total costs. Okay, so very good. We have a profit of PX minus the quantity of FC plus VC. Okay. You can also rewrite this as PX minus FC minus VC. Now, next item. What is the revenue? So our revenue is 200x plus 8,500. Asa nagikan? The revenue is profit plus total costs. Again, profit plus total cost. So 160x plus 40x, you get 200x. 6,000 plus 2,500, you get 8,500. Lastly, what's the total costs? Okay, so the total cost is 200x plus 1,000. Asa nagikan? Again, the revenue, the total cost is equal to the revenue minus the profit. So revenue 500x minus 300x, you get 200x. Sunod, because this is minus and this is revenue minus profit. So negative, negative pa ini, so you have plus. So you have plus 1,000. Okay? Sige. Again, let's recall our formulas. Revenue is equal to the profit plus the total costs. The total cost is equal to the revenue minus the profit. Okay, any questions regarding our lesson for today before we proceed with our activity?